Thanks once again for being here with J Lowe Artist on my YouTube channel. A little while ago, I did a little program on some of the techniques and styles and things that I've used with my Prismacolors, and painting with some gouache or some opaque water paint, some tempera. I want to take that a little step further with this one. I'm going to show you a technique where I'm using watercolors in the background, and I use both just cake watercolors like the Crayola brand watercolors like these here, and some watercolor pencils, just Crayola brand watercolor pencils, along with the white cake tempera and the Prismacolors. So I like to do the backgrounds with the watercolors. They're quick, they're kind of soft, there's not a lot of tight detail, not a lot of contrast that you get from that. And that is often what you see in the backgrounds anyway. And then I like to use Prismacolors on top of that to increase the contrast, to increase the detail and the tightness of it. And so I just kind of want to show you a little bit about my process with that. Let me take you into some of my mixed media drawings. This is a drawing that I did. I took some scrap of this girl from Jamestown. She was there making some bread. Just a cute gal. Her name was Sephora. She was so accommodating, and I told her I'm an artist and I'd love to paint you. And she said, "What do you want me to do?" She just posed for me, and so I took 3 or 4 photographs and did this drawing. Everything in the background is watercolor with a little bit of Prismacolor on it, just to give it a little bit of detail and some tightness to it. The entire figure of her is all Prismacolor. There's no watercolor in it at all. But everything else has a little bit of watercolor to it. And it just got a nice unified surface using this technique. So let me go through some other techniques. This one here is all watercolors. This, again, is a gal from Williamsburg who was sewing. We went into the milliner shop, and she was so accommodating. And I told her I'm an artist, and she said, "What do you want me to do?" So this is a compilation of about 3 or 4 photographs, and I did this little painting. It's entirely watercolor. So, and this was done with Crayola watercolors and watercolor pencils. Maybe $10 worth of mediums and materials. This is done on illustration board, on 300 series cold press illustration board. So it's not very expensive. I think a lot of people get dismayed by doing art because they feel like they have to buy a lot of stuff. Some of this stuff you probably have lying around that your kids use. I'm a big proponent that you can do good art with very inexpensive things. And anybody that's gone out and bought art materials nowadays they know it's just very expensive. So this one here was kind of a compilation of what I did with Hannah and her kitchen. I think I've got a picture here of Hannah and her kitchen, but it's the same kind of thing. I did some tempera behind her, just that white cake tempera, and then went over the top of that with Prismacolor. This is again another one. The background is done with watercolor pencils and that tempera, and the rest of it's done with Prismacolor. This is my grandson, and it's all watercolor in the background with the tempera and some Prismacolor on top, just to give it some color and some contrast. So this one I did for the 150th anniversary of Golden Spike there in northern Utah. This is Hannah in her kitchen, and I did a little PowerPoint on this one too, and the step-by-step guide with this, using the paint as a contrast. But what I'd like to do is just kind of take you through some more steps and maybe just add kind of a little bit to this. This is another one that I did of in Williamsburg. This is the Brunton Parish Church. I took some photographs of it, and then I just added all these historical figures in there. And I used myself and my good friend as a model there, and there were other people talking to us, and I just changed them into historical figures. But all the background is done with watercolors on matte board, and the matte board is kind of a cream colored or tan colored matte board. And if you don't use a lot of water, it stays together pretty well. And then a Prismacolor on top for some detail and contrast. So with this painting here, my idea was pirates and mermaids. I love pirates and mermaids, and that fact that they're very playful with each other. You can't really trust either one of them. And so I just want to take you on a step-by-step guide through this one. The mermaid is cheating. Her little tail is moving his chest piece while she's doing a little distraction on him. And anyway, just kind of a fun little piece. This is my scrap that I started out with. I was just kind of looking for some pictures of things, and it's amazing what you can find online. And so you can probably look through and see where I've used my references here. But once you get your references and you put them all together, you want to do a little bit of a little thumbnail sketch, or a little just kind of put it all together and make sure it's all going to work out. Here I wasn't sure if I needed a boat in the background, so I just took a little piece of tracing paper and threw this little boat in there and stuck it back there and thought, no, okay, does that distract or is it going to work out? And I kind of feel like I needed it back in there, so I went ahead and added it in. Here the background is all done with watercolor pencils. And you can see down in here where the watercolor pencils are, they're kind of hurriedly put in, kind of sketchily put in. And then I just take water over the top of that, and it becomes paint, and off you go. You just can smooth it out and thin it out. You can add more later on. You can add it when it's wet. You can add it when it's dry. It becomes a really wonderful medium to use, especially in the background. And so a little bit of that white cake tempera, and that will create some highlights in the foam of the water and the rocks. I always like to paint back to forward, or draw back to forward, as in this case. Painting and drawing to me are about the same thing. So here I am adding some detail with Prismacolor, and sometimes you got to work things out a little bit as you're drawing along. Some of this stuff in the front is some of my personal items, my hat, my sword and gun, and so I just kind of arranged those and took a picture of them. But good scrap is so important to have. So you just keep adding your Prismacolor into it, layering those in just like you normally would. And I've got plenty of YouTube variations on layering in graphite, or layering in Prismacolor or graphite, but in this case it's Prismacolor. And trying to get, texture and things. Her tail was kind of a pain. You had to get it just right so that everything looks like it was turning around. You can't just layer it in being flat. You want to have that curve of everything. So anyway, it's almost done. You're going through and again, trying to remember to get the contrast in there as fast as you can and as correctly as you can. And then, the last thing is maybe some of the little incidental things, some of the dirt, the rocks, and, little things like that, the sand that's in there. But when it's all done, make sure you sign it. I really have a devil of a time getting some of my students to sign their work. They want to put their name on the back. Your signature on your piece of artwork, that's your copyright. That's your stamp of approval. And you should always sign it. This is just another example. You can see where I in the background, I just layered in Prismacolor pencil, or watercolor pencils, and then just went over that with a little bit of water, added some of that, little bit of that white cake tempera for highlights and contrast. There's the background there. I did a little bit in her flesh tones with the cake tempera, just because I wanted that to pop a little bit more. Wanted the background to be nice and cool and the foreground to be nice and warm. And so this is kind of what it ended up being. I wanted to add a bunch of little dragons in the background, you know, so that the viewer has a little bit of a journey to go through when they're looking at the narrative, and then they start making up their own little stories. You know, the longer you can involve people in your artwork, the more successful you'll be. Let me know in the comments if you're successful with that. If there's anything you need, shoot me a little message and let me know. And I'd like to do some more of these little videos on what can you do with your artwork. And I'm very eclectic. I sculpt, paint, draw, and I make all sorts of things. Love history and historical reenactment. So there's lots that you can do with your art. And I hope that you enjoy that journey of your art. And I hope it makes your life better, because art makes life better.